"My mommy is sick, but she still works," the little girl whispered, and the CEO couldn't stay silent. The rain fell in silver sheets against the glass walls of the lobby, the world outside blurred in a stormy mess of lights and shadows. Inside, warm lamps glowed across polished marble floors, reflecting a world that felt too calm, too steady, completely unaware of the storm quietly unfolding on a wooden bench near the entrance. Nathan Pierce, the sharply dressed CEO of Pierce Holdings, had walked through storms far more brutal than the one outside, but none had ever stopped him in his tracks the way the sight of one small child did. She couldn't have been more than 4, her legs dangled helplessly off the bench, her tiny fingers curled around a worn-out backpack that looked older than she was. And her eyes, big, scared, shimmering, held a heavy secret no child should ever carry. Nathan had seen desperation in boardrooms, betrayal in negotiations, and greed hidden behind expensive smiles. But he had never seen a child sit silently in a lobby, fighting tears while staring out into the rain as though waiting for a miracle she no longer believed would come. Something inside him shifted. Something deep, something human. He didn't know then that this moment, this tiny girl in a faded pink dress, would become the most defining moment of his life. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of our shared humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Nathan knelt beside the bench, the soft echo of his footsteps fading as he lowered himself to her level. He tried to speak gently, not wanting to frighten her, but his voice cracked slightly with concern he didn't fully understand. The girl clutched her backpack tighter, as though bracing for another blow from a world that had already taken too much from her. Her little shoes were soaked at the edges, her jacket looked thin against the cold. She didn't speak at first. She simply studied him, as if trying to decide whether the tall man in the expensive suit was safe or just another grown-up who would walk past her problems. Nathan didn't push. He had a strict rule in business: never force an answer before trust is built. Eventually, her lips trembled, and she whispered the sentence that would tear open his heart and rearrange everything he thought he knew about struggle, love, and resilience. "My mommy is sick, but she still works." The words were tiny, almost fragile, but they carried a weight so heavy even Nathan felt it land on his chest. He realized instantly that this wasn't a lost child situation. This was survival. And survival often came with stories drenched in pain. She blinked quickly, trying to be brave, and continued. Mommy was upstairs, delivering food orders for the hotel restaurant. She wasn't supposed to bring her daughter with her, but today she had no choice. Her fever had gotten worse, her chest hurt so much she could barely breathe, and she was afraid she might faint while working. But she needed the job. They needed the money. Rent was overdue. Bills had piled up. The girl explained this with heartbreaking simplicity, the way children do when they repeat the things they've heard grown-ups whisper in fear. And then, almost as if confessing a crime, she added softly, "Mommy didn't want to tell anyone she's sick, because she needs the work." Nathan's breath caught. He felt something far deeper than shock, he felt shame. Shame that someone working in a building he owned believed they had to hide illness to keep their job. Shame that a mother had to bring her child to work on a stormy night because there was no one else, no safety net, no mercy in the system meant to protect her. Shame that somewhere along the line, while he'd been building an empire, someone right under his nose had been silently breaking. Nathan gently asked her for her name. "Lily," she said, barely above a whisper. Lily, with blonde curls tied into uneven pigtails, pink cheeks smudged from wiping tears, and eyes too wise for her age. Lily, who had learned to sit still and quiet in lobbies so her mother wouldn't get in trouble. Lily, who had memorized how many hours the shift would last by counting the clock ticks on the wall. Nathan stood slowly, a sudden resolve forming inside him. He didn't make promises easily, not in business, not in life. But he knew with absolute clarity that he would not walk away from this child or the mother fighting through sickness to survive. Not tonight. Not ever again. He told her to wait, that he would be right back, and asked the concierge on duty where the hotel kitchen runners worked. He moved with purpose, the kind his boardroom rivals feared and his employees respected. But this time, it wasn't about winning. It was about saving. When he reached the dimly lit employee corridor behind the restaurant, he found her. Emma Carter. Mid-30s. Pale, sweating, shaking, her hand braced against the wall as she tried to catch her breath between deliveries. Her uniform clung to her from the rain she'd run through earlier. Dark circles under her eyes revealed months, maybe years, of exhaustion. She didn't see him at first, she was too busy fighting to stay upright. Nathan watched for a moment, struck by the rawness, the courage, the desperation wrapped inside her trembling frame. He had seen employees work hard. He had seen people push limits. But he had never witnessed someone look so close to collapsing while still whispering to herself, just 2 more orders, just 2 more. When she finally noticed him, she flinched, terrified she had done something wrong. She tried to stand straighter, tried to smile, tried to pretend she wasn't drowning in sickness. But lies fall apart under the eyes of someone who actually looks. Nathan didn't reprimand her. He didn't ask procedural questions. Instead, he walked toward her with softness she didn't expect. She apologized softly, saying she knew she wasn't supposed to have her daughter downstairs, that she was trying her best, that she could finish the shift if he needed her to. That she couldn't afford to lose this job. That she would work extra tomorrow if she could just rest tonight. Her voice cracked. Her legs buckled. Nathan caught her before she hit the floor. For a man who held a billion-dollar company together with strict logic, this moment shattered him. She was light, too light. And burning with fever. She tried to insist she was fine even as she leaned into him, but her body betrayed her with each shaking breath. Nathan called the hotel medical unit immediately and carried her to the staff lounge, ignoring her protests. He wasn't just the CEO tonight. He was a human being. When the medic confirmed she was dangerously ill with pneumonia symptoms and needed immediate hospital care, Emma broke down in tears, not for her health, but for the bill she couldn't afford and the job she feared she was about to lose. Nathan knelt beside her, just as he had knelt beside Lily earlier, and made the first promise he had made outside a contract in years: she wasn't losing anything. Not her job. Not her dignity. Not her hope. She tried to argue, tried to explain that people like her didn't get miracle breaks. But Nathan had already made up his mind. Tonight, his company would show a level of humanity he should have enforced long ago. He personally arranged for her ambulance, ensured her medical costs were fully covered, and reassured her, gently, firmly, that Lily was safe and waiting. While Emma was transported out, Nathan returned to the lobby to find Lily still sitting upright, clutching her backpack like armor. The moment she saw him, she blinked rapidly, her tiny voice breaking as she asked if Mommy was okay. Nathan lifted her into his arms, not because she asked, but because she needed someone to hold her for the first time that day. He told her that Mommy was getting help, real help, and she cried silently into his shoulder, her little fingers gripping his suit jacket. It was in that moment that Nathan finally understood something about himself. He had spent his life building a towering empire, but somewhere in the climb, he had lost sight of the ground, the real people who kept everything running. And it had taken the soft sobs of a child to remind him how easily people slipped through cracks he had the power to close. For the next few days, Nathan visited the hospital personally. Lily stayed in a special family room the hospital staff arranged, and Nathan made sure she didn't feel alone. He brought coloring books, warm meals, and little toys that made her smile. But more importantly, he brought presents, steady, safe, caring. Emma recovered slowly, each day filled with guilt for being a burden, and each day Nathan reassured her she wasn't. He learned her story, a single mother abandoned during pregnancy, juggling 2 jobs for years, constantly on the edge of collapse yet determined to give Lily a life better than her own. She had never asked for help because life had taught her that help came with judgment or conditions.